It all started with a scream. Marcus, the janitor at Ashford Technologies, never imagined he'd be at the center of a deadly conspiracy. When he saves the CEO's life, he uncovers dark secrets that threaten everything. With Serena's warnings and Jack's hidden past, Marcus realizes he's in way over his head. Who can he trust? And what's really going on at Ashford? Before we continue, let's know in the comments section what time it is where you are viewing from. And don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button. Marcus had always been invisible at Ashford Technologies. His uniform was plain. The smell of cleaning products clung to him as he moved through the hallways, wiping down the glass walls that separated the corporate elite from the rest of the building. He was the janitor, and that was how it would always be. But today, something was different. The boardroom door swung open. A sharp scream echoed from within the room, followed by a sickening crash. Marcus froze in place. His hand, still holding the rag with which he had been cleaning the hallway windows, dropped. What was happening in there? His curiosity gnawed at him. And for the first time in years, he didn't feel invisible. Something was wrong. Something big. His pulse quickened as he took a hesitant step forward. Then, through the glass windows of the conference room, he saw it. Victoria Holt, the CEO, the woman who commanded the entire company, the woman who had built the empire from the ground up, was on the floor. Her body sprawled across the expensive hardwood like a broken doll. Her eyes were wide, and her lips, those lips that had never once faltered in a board meeting, were turning blue. The silence in the room was suffocating. The board members, typically so composed, stood frozen, paralyzed by shock. No one was moving. Marcus didn't think. He didn't have time to. He threw the rag aside, sprinted to the door, and burst into the room. "Call 911, he shouted, but the room was eerily still. No one did anything. Not a single person moved. He was the only one who could help her, the janitor, the nobody. He dropped to his knees beside Victoria and checked her pulse. Nothing. Her body was cold and limp. Panic surged in his chest. She was dying. Without thinking, he reached for her face, pinching her nose and tilting her head back. He placed his mouth over hers and forced air into her lungs. 1 breath. 2 breaths. Her chest didn't rise. "She's not moving," someone else hissed. But then, something stirred inside of him. A faint memory from an old CPR class at the local community center, the free one with food vouchers. It had been years since then. But he remembered the basic techniques. The fear in his chest grew louder, but he didn't stop. He pressed his hands to her chest, counting out loud as he performed compressions. 1, 2, 3, 4. The room was filled with gasps. Someone muttered under their breath, "Is he kissing her? What's happening?" But Marcus didn't hear them. The voices blurred. All that mattered was her breath, her heartbeat. The seconds stretched into minutes. But then, miraculously, her chest jerked. She gasped for air, her eyes fluttering open. She was alive. Marcus collapsed backward, his body shaking from the intensity of the moment. Sweat drenched his shirt, and his hands felt numb. But no one came to thank him. No one said a word. The executives surrounded Victoria, but no one even acknowledged the janitor. The truth hit him hard. He had saved her life, and yet he was still the invisible one. The next day felt like a dream. No one spoke to Marcus, not a single word. It was as if the previous night had never happened. He had saved Victoria, the CEO, and yet nothing had changed. In fact, everything had become colder. The silence in the halls felt suffocating. It wasn't until he reached the office late in the morning that he was called in by HR. His hands trembled as he walked to the office, trying to suppress the unease that had settled deep in his chest. Why was he being called in? He had done the right thing. He had saved Victoria's life. But what is happening now? Was he about to be rewarded? Was this going to be his breakthrough? He didn't think so. The cold air of the office, the buzzing of the fluorescent lights above his head, told him otherwise. He knocked once before entering the HR office. The HR manager, a stern woman named Miss Jensen, looked up from behind her desk and gestured for him to sit. "Marcus," she began, her voice flat. "We need to have a conversation about your conduct." Marcus's stomach dropped. "What do you mean? I did what I had to do last night." "I know you think you were acting in good faith," she said slowly. "But what you did was highly inappropriate. You crossed boundaries. And we have received several complaints about your actions." He stared at her, confused. "Complaints? I saved her life. You don't understand the position you've put the company in," Miss Jensen continued. "We cannot have someone like you, someone without clearance, touching the CEO. Do you understand the legal implications of what you did?" Marcus's mind raced. "I just did what I was trained to do. I saved her life. I didn't ask for this." Miss Jensen's lips pressed into a thin line. "Your actions are considered a violation of company policy. You are fired, effective immediately." Marcus stood in disbelief as the words sank in. He had done everything right. And now he was being fired. His life, his job, his future, shattered. As he gathered his belongings and walked out of the building, a text message flashed across his phone. It was from an unknown number. "You think you've been punished? It's only just begun. They are coming for you." The next few days were a blur for Marcus. Everywhere he went, people were whispering. At the grocery store, in the coffee shop, everyone was talking about him. He was no longer just the janitor. He was the villain, the one who had crossed a line. But what made it worse was that no one believed him. It wasn't until a few days later when Marcus got another message from the same unknown number. "We know about the files. You have no idea what's really going on at Ashford Technologies. Get out while you still can." What files? What was this person talking about? Was there something more to Victoria's collapse than just an accident? The text gnawed at him, and Marcus couldn't shake the feeling that something dangerous was lurking behind the scenes. Something much bigger than he ever imagined. That night, Marcus met with his old friend from the IT department, Miller, at a dive bar in the city. Miller had always been the one to crack open the company's dirty secrets. But even he looked nervous when Marcus asked about the files. "There's something wrong, Marcus. There are files. Top secret ones," Miller said in a low voice, glancing around the room. "I don't know what they contain, but I know they are connected to Victoria, and you don't want to be the one to expose them." Marcus hadn't stopped thinking about the text message. "We know about the files. You have no idea what's really going on at Ashford Technologies. Get out while you still can." The message came from an anonymous number. He had no clue who it was, but he knew one thing for sure. It was connected to the company. And it wasn't just the collapse of Victoria that had set everything off. Something darker was hidden beneath the surface of Ashford Technologies. He could feel it in his bones. He couldn't ignore it anymore. He had to know what was going on. After his last conversation with Miller, he realized that the files were the key to understanding everything. But where were they? Who had them? And more importantly, what were they hiding? Late that night, Marcus sat in his dimly lit apartment, his eyes red from lack of sleep. He pulled up the company's internal portal again, this time searching for anything unusual. He was determined to crack the code. As his fingers hovered over the keyboard, the screensaver kicked in. It flickered briefly before showing an unexpected prompt. "Access granted." "Welcome, Marcus Grant." "Access granted." Marcus froze. His heart pounded. He hadn't signed in yet. This wasn't a login page. He was already inside. The message was clear. Someone had unlocked it for him. Just then, his phone buzzed again. Another text. "We are watching you. Don't get too comfortable." Panic coursed through his veins. Who was monitoring him? Who was involved? He pushed the thoughts aside and focused back on the screen. There, on the company's server, were files upon files, documents marked confidential, top secret, and most shockingly, for the CEO's eyes only. He clicked on the first one. The file opened, revealing detailed financial records, but they weren't typical business expenses. These records showed off the books, transactions, bribery, and even unlawful dealings with government officials. The deeper he scrolled, the darker the revelations became. This was no ordinary company. This was an empire built on lies. But it wasn't just financial corruption. There were documents about employees, specifically disappearances. He saw names, dates, and locations. And then, there it was, buried in the middle of the file, Jack Ellis. The name jumped out at him, a ghost from the past. The very man who had disappeared years ago. Why was Jack's name here? What did he know? His eyes narrowed as he read further. Jack Ellis was getting too close to the truth. Eliminate him before he exposes everything. Marcus's stomach dropped. This wasn't just about the firm's illegal activities. This was about a cover-up. Jack had been silenced for a reason. And now, Marcus had stumbled upon it. The screen blinked out suddenly, and the internal portal froze. Marcus's heart sank as he stared at the message that appeared. Your access has been revoked. His phone buzzed once more. Another anonymous message. You are too deep now. There's no turning back. Panic surged through him. He clicked furiously, hoping to gain control, but the portal wouldn't respond. It was done. His hands were shaking, his mind racing. What had he just uncovered? What could he do now that he was locked out? And who had been watching him? Has he been found out? Before he could process what was happening, his phone buzzed again. Another anonymous message. You're too deep now. There's no turning back. Marcus stood frozen. His pulse thudded in his ears as his fingers hovered over his phone. The weight of the words pressed down on him. The firm was closing in, and they were playing a game far more dangerous than he had ever imagined. There was no turning back now. Suddenly, a voice interrupted his thoughts. He turned quickly, his body tensing. Marcus, a voice called from the doorway. It was Serena Moore, the lawyer who had left Ashford years ago under mysterious circumstances. She had been one of the few people to show Marcus any semblance of kindness. But now, something was off. Serena stood in the doorway, her eyes darting nervously around the room, as if she was checking for eavesdroppers. You need to leave. Now. Her voice was low, urgent. What's going on, Serena? Marcus asked, his mind still reeling from the files he had uncovered. I can't explain it all right now, she whispered, her voice trembling. But they know you are digging. They know you've found something. And if you don't get out, they will make sure you disappear, just like Jack. Her words hit Marcus like a punch to the gut. Disappear? Jack had disappeared, and now Marcus was in the same danger. His throat tightened. He had to act. Serena stepped closer, glancing over her shoulder before she handed him a small, weathered envelope. Take this, she said. You need to know what they are hiding, Marcus. It's all in there, but don't trust anyone, not even me. Marcus took the envelope, his mind still spinning. What is this? What's going on? Serena's eyes filled with an unspoken fear as she backed toward the door. You don't have time to ask questions. Get out of here. Go to the old building, the one they shut down years ago. You will find what you are looking for there. Just don't trust anyone who tells you not to go. And then, before Marcus could respond, Serena turned and walked away. The weight of the situation was crushing him. Serena had given him no choice. He had to go. But the building she mentioned, the one they had shut down, was nothing but a forgotten relic of the firm's past. Why would it hold the answers he was looking for? Marcus knew time was running out. He couldn't just sit here anymore. With the envelope in hand, he raced out of the house, his feet pounding against the cold sidewalk. As he hit the street, the neighborhood felt off. His phone buzzed again, another message. If you truly love yourself, it's better you stop digging. Marcus felt the cold sting of the wind as he ran down the street. his breath sharp in his chest. His feet slapped against the pavement in rhythmic desperation. His mind was a storm of thoughts. Serena's warning, the strange messages, the discovery of the files, and then, of course, the final blow. His firing. Everything he had built, everything he had worked for, was falling apart. But now, there was no turning back. He clutched the small envelope in his hand, the contents a mystery that could either save him or ruin him. What was Serena hiding? Why had she given him this? And why had she sent him to the abandoned building they had shut down years ago? Every instinct told him to turn around and walk away, but Marcus wasn't the kind of man to back down now. They knew what he had found. He could feel their eyes on him, even though no one was there. There was no safety. Not anymore. As he neared the old district where the abandoned building stood, his phone buzzed again. Another message. You are too deep now. They are already watching. You are not getting out alive. His heart skipped. It was the same voice from before, the one that had threatened him twice now. Who were they? And why were they so desperate to stop him? He passed the last few buildings, stepping into the shadows of the old neighborhood. The warehouse was a dilapidated structure, its windows boarded up, its steel doors rusted and covered in graffiti. It had the look of something forgotten by time, an old relic from Ashford's past, tucked away and discarded. Just like the people who had disappeared, Marcus took a deep breath and shoved the envelope into his coat pocket, his hands trembling. He was at the entrance now, the giant metal doors looming in front of him. Was this it? Was this where it all led? He reached out and grabbed the handle of the rusted door. A loud screech echoed as he pulled it open, revealing a vast, empty space inside. The air was thick with dust and the smell of decay. Cobwebs clung to the rafters, and the floor was scattered with debris. His flashlight flickered to life as he stepped inside, casting long, eerie shadows on the walls. Every creak of the floorboards felt like an alarm. Every breath felt like a warning. He moved deeper into the warehouse, his senses heightened. The silence felt wrong, unnatural. He expected to find files, documents, maybe even something that could connect all the dots. But nothing could prepare him for the sight he would find next. At the far end of the warehouse was a small desk, covered with papers, old coffee cups, and what appeared to be a laptop. The screen was cracked, but it hummed quietly, as if waiting for someone to unlock its secrets. Marcus stepped forward, his mind racing. He had to be careful. As he sat down in front of the desk, he pulled open the laptop. It took a moment for the screen to boot up, but soon, a series of files appeared on the screen. His heart skipped a beat. These weren't just any files. They were detailed financial records, secret transactions, personnel records, everything he had seen in the files at Ashford. But these were different. These files were bigger. They had names, dates, and locations, all tied to disappearances, shady dealings, and illegal operations. The names of employees, some familiar, some unfamiliar, were buried within these pages. But as Marcus scrolled down, he froze. At the bottom of the list was the name Jack Ellis. The name stood out like a neon sign. The name of the man who had gone missing months ago. The one whose disappearance had always been whispered about in the halls of Ashford Technologies. Marcus felt his pulse quicken. Why was Jack's name in these files? What had he uncovered before he disappeared? His fingers hovered over the mouse, but then the screen flickered. A message appeared. Do you really want to know the truth, Marcus? The words on the screen suddenly disappeared. The entire system froze. The lights in the warehouse flickered, and Marcus felt a cold shiver run down his spine. Someone was watching him. He wasn't alone anymore. The sound of footsteps echoed in the distance, growing louder, closer. Marcus's heart raced as he heard the footsteps getting closer. He quickly glanced over his shoulder. But the warehouse was empty. Too empty. He stood up, his breath shallow, his eyes scanning the shadows. trying to pierce through the thick darkness. His hands trembled as he closed the laptop. There was no time to waste. He had to get out before they found him. But the door, the only way out, was locked. Panic surged in his chest. Who was here? Then, from the darkness, a shadow stepped forward. It was a figure cloaked in black, a mask covering their face. Marcus's blood ran cold. The figure didn't say anything. They just raised a hand, signaling for him to follow them. What was going on? What had he uncovered that was so important to them? Before he could react, the figure spoke. "You have made a mistake, Marcus." The voice was cold, emotionless. "You don't know who you are dealing with." Marcus stood his ground. "I want answers." The figure stepped closer, the tension between them thick. "You will get your answers. But not now. Not like this." The figure reached into their coat pocket and pulled out a phone, holding it out to Marcus. "Take this. It's the only way you will survive. If you want to know the truth, you will need to trust us." Marcus hesitated, fear battling with his need for answers. His hand hovered over the phone, uncertain of what it might cost him. Marcus's mind raced as he stared at the phone in the figure's hand. He had been on the verge of uncovering something huge at Ashford Technologies, but now, his life was on the line. He had no idea who this person was, or what they wanted with him. The shadowed figure stood motionless, waiting for him to make a choice. The silence stretched on. For a long moment, Marcus debated. Should he trust this stranger? He had no choice. He needed answers. And whatever this was, it seemed to be his only shot. Finally, he reached out, taking the phone from the figure's hand. Then his phone buzzed again. This time, it was from Serena. Then, the message appeared. "You are already marked. Trust no one." The screen went black. The phone buzzed once more. A new message lighting up the screen. "They are closing in on you, Marcus. You are running out of time." Before he could process it, the sound of sirens wailed in the distance. The sirens were getting closer. Was someone coming to help him? Or was it the company coming for him? Who had been behind the phone and the mysterious figure? Marcus couldn't breathe. The sirens grew louder. His heart thundered in his chest, and the blood rushed in his ears as he glanced back over his shoulder, seeing the figure in black disappearing into the shadows of the warehouse. The phone in his hand buzzed again, a new message lighting up the screen. "They are coming. Leave now. Don't wait for them to find you." The words were clear. The sirens were getting closer, and Marcus couldn't afford to wait for another moment. His fingers shook as he stuffed the phone into his jacket pocket, glancing around the dark, decaying space. The heavy footsteps from the figure echoed through the warehouse. Then it happened. He heard a voice calling from a distance. "Marcus, get down." Before he could react, the ground beneath him seemed to shift, a burst of pain tearing through his side as he was thrown into the dirt. A sharp crack. A man in a mask stood above him, pinning him to the cold ground, one arm across his throat. The sound of the sirens, now nearly deafening, were drowned out by the adrenaline racing through his veins. He didn't have time to think. Who were these people? "Get off me!" Marcus gasped, struggling beneath the stranger's weight. But the man only pressed harder. "You don't get to run, Marcus," he said, his voice low, distorted through the mask. "You are deep in it now." Too deep. Marcus's mind raced. Deep in what? He gathered every ounce of strength left in his body and kicked out, forcing the man off him with a violent shove. The masked figure staggered back, his surprise evident as he reached for something at his waist. Marcus didn't hesitate. He lunged, tackling the man to the ground with all the force he had left. "Who the hell are you?" Marcus shouted, his voice shaking with rage. "What do you want with me?" The man didn't answer. He only fought back harder, but Marcus was stronger, determined. The stranger's mask slipped as they wrestled, revealing a familiar face, one Marcus didn't expect. It was Jack Ellis, the very man who had disappeared years ago from Ashford Technologies, the one who had always been the eyes and ears of the company's inner workings. "Jake?" Marcus gasped, struggling to pin him down. Jake's eyes widened, fear flashing across his face, before he quickly masked it with anger. "Don't say my name," he hissed. Marcus's breath caught in his throat as he stared down at the man beneath him. "Jack Ellis." "Jack?" Marcus's voice trembled, his disbelief almost suffocating him. "What the hell is going on? Why are you attacking me?" Jack's eyes darted around the room, panic flashing across his face as he tried to break free from Marcus's grip. "You are making a huge mistake. You don't know what you are dealing with," he growled, his chest heaving with every breath. Marcus held him down tighter. This wasn't right. Jack had always seemed like an ally, someone who could be trusted. But now, he was fighting like a cornered animal. "What do you mean, a mistake?" Marcus spat, his hands shaking with adrenaline. "I saved her. I saved Victoria. And this is how you repay me." Jack's anger flared. "Victoria is not the one you should be worried about, Marcus. You think this is just about her? About what happened in that boardroom? You think you've cracked the code? It's so much bigger than that." Marcus's mind raced. He had always known Ashford. Technologies had secrets, but what Jack was implying sounded like a nightmare. Something deeper, more dangerous. "Who are you working for, Jack?" Marcus demanded, his voice harsh. "I never thought you were part of this. Not like this." Jack's eyes softened for a second, and Marcus could see the guilt there. "I didn't have a choice," he whispered, his voice low and strained. "I'm not the one pulling the strings. I'm just a cog in the machine." But now it's too late. Before Marcus could respond, a noise from the hallway broke their moment of confrontation. Heavy footsteps. Too many footsteps. Someone was coming. Marcus quickly let go of Jack, both of them scrambling to their feet. Jack wiped his brow, then pulled a small device from his pocket. A phone, Marcus realized. A burner phone. He quickly typed something before throwing it aside. "They are onto us, Marcus," Jack muttered, his voice grim. "We don't have much time. They will be here soon." Marcus looked at him, uncertainty filling his chest. "Who's coming? Who's after us?" Jack's eyes hardened. "People much worse than me. People who don't care who you are or what you know. You've seen too much, Marcus. It's not just about the company anymore. It's about power, the kind that controls everything, and they will make sure you never get to the truth." Before Marcus could respond, Jack grabbed his wrist, pulling him toward the back door. "We need to move, now." The door behind them creaked open, heavy boots. Marcus's heart raced as he turned to see the dark shapes moving toward them. They were already here. They dashed through the back alley, Marcus's heart hammering in his chest. He barely kept up with Jack, who was moving with surprising speed despite his earlier aggression. The dimly lit alley seemed to stretch on forever, shadows playing tricks on Marcus's mind as the night felt darker than ever. The footsteps were growing closer. They weren't alone. Marcus could feel the danger tightening around them, like a noose ready to snap shut. Jack glanced over his shoulder, his face tight with tension. "This is bad, Marcus. We're not going to outrun them." Marcus didn't want to hear that. He had no choice but to outrun them. The adrenaline still surged through his body, his instincts pushing him forward. But Jack wasn't wrong. The footsteps were getting louder. And then came the screeching sound of tires. A black SUV screeched around the corner, blocking the alley. The headlights cut through the darkness, blinding Marcus for a moment. Jack cursed under his breath, but before Marcus could react, the SUV's door swung open, and two men in black suits stepped out. They were armed. "You're not going anywhere, Marcus," one of the men said coldly, his hand resting on the gun holstered at his waist. "We're here to take you in." Marcus froze, panic surging through him. His eyes darted around, searching for any possible way out. But the alley was blocked on all sides. Jack stepped forward, his voice steady despite the situation. You really want to do this? You don't even know who you're messing with. The men didn't flinch. Instead, one of them raised his gun slightly, his eyes narrowing. We don't care who you are, Jack. Move aside. This is bigger than you, bigger than Marcus. You have no idea what's coming. Marcus's stomach twisted. This was it. He wasn't going to get out of this one. Suddenly, another voice cut through the tension. Stop! A woman's voice shouted. It was familiar. Serena. She stepped out from the shadows, a gun in her hand. She aimed it directly at the men, in suits. You want him? You'll have to go through me first. Serena's voice was firm, and despite the situation, there was a glint of determination in her eyes. The men hesitated, exchanging uncertain glances. Serena, what the hell are you doing here? Jack asked, his voice full of disbelief. You're one of them. Serena shook her head, her expression resolute. I'm not one of them anymore, Jack. She lowered her gun slightly, but kept her stance firm. I've been working with Marcus for the last few days. And I'm here to make sure he doesn't fall into the wrong hands. You need to leave him alone. The men looked at each other, their faces hardening. You're making a mistake, Serena. Get out of our way, or we'll take you down too. Serena's finger twitched on the trigger, her eyes never leaving them. You're not the ones calling the shots here. If you want Marcus, you'll have to go through me, and I'm not going anywhere. The two men exchanged another look, tension filling the air. The silence stretched, and Marcus could feel the weight of the decision hanging in the balance. The tension was unbearable. The men in black suits took a step forward, clearly underestimating Serena. They had no idea who they were dealing with. Serena's eyes locked onto them, her gun still steady in her hands. This ends now. Marcus felt his heart race again, but this time, it was different. Serena had just made herself their enemy, and he wasn't sure if it was going to save them or get them both killed. Before the men could react, Serena pulled the trigger. The shot echoed through the alley like thunder. But the bullet wasn't meant to kill. It hit the ground in front of the two men, sending a cloud of dust and debris into the air. Get down! Serena shouted, grabbing Marcus and pulling him behind an old dumpster for cover. The men immediately returned fire, the sound of bullets whizzing past them. Marcus's heart skipped. He didn't want to die like this, trapped in an alley, fighting for a truth he didn't even fully understand. Serena pulled him lower behind the dumpster, her voice a low whisper. We need to move, Marcus. They will keep coming. They won't stop. Marcus nodded. He could feel the weight of it all pressing down on him. He was trapped. There was no going back. Serena moved with practiced precision, pulling Marcus to his feet. This way. But as they rounded the corner, the sound of sirens filled the air. The city was closing in. The sound of sirens grew louder, merging with the pounding of Marcus's heartbeat as he and Serena scrambled through the alley. Every corner they turned seemed to be darker, more suffocating than the last. The faint glow from the distant streetlights barely lit their way, but the shadow of danger loomed much larger. Serena's grip tightened on Marcus's wrist as they reached a side door of an old building. The plan had been simple. Get to safety, find answers, but now everything was spiraling out of control. The fight was far from over. The sign, the sex saw bore. We are not safe yet, Marcus, Serena whispered, her voice laced with urgency. She pushed the door open just enough for them to slip inside. The stale air of the building hit them, but Marcus barely registered the damp smell of dust and decay. His mind was spinning. Too many questions, too many dangers closing in around him. Jack, the masked figure, the flash drive, the conspiracy at Ashford, and now Victoria. Why was she involved? Why had she been a target? Serena turned to him, her face haggard from the chaos. I never wanted to pull you into this, Marcus, but you are the only one who can help expose them. The truth is buried so deep, but you have seen it. You have touched it. You are in it now. Marcus didn't reply immediately. His mind was still running through the fragments of everything he had uncovered. The files, the messages. Victoria. I don't understand, he muttered, his voice rough. Why would anyone want to kill her? Victoria Holt is the CEO. She runs the entire company. She built it. Serena's eyes flashed with something close to fear. She was getting too close to the truth. Marcus turned to her, his brow furrowed. The truth? What truth? What does Ashford have to do with all this? She swallowed hard. It's not just Ashford. It's the whole corporate network. They have been using her to cover up illegal deals, corruption, trafficking, government contracts that are laundering money. Victoria was about to expose it all. Marcus's eyes widened. So they tried to kill her to keep it hidden. Serena nodded grimly. That's what I'm afraid of. Just as Marcus processed the magnitude of Serena's words, he heard the unmistakable sound of footsteps approaching the building. Shouts echoed through the walls. They found us. Serena's voice was full of panic as she backed away from the door. We have to go. Now. Serena grabbed Marcus by the arm, pulling him toward a stairwell at the back of the building. The footsteps were getting closer. He could feel the urgency building in the air, but there was nowhere to hide. Marcus's mind was spinning. The truth was right in front of him. But every time he got closer, it felt like the world was pushing him back. The stairwell creaked under their weight as they ascended. Serena, her face set in a grim determination, didn't say a word. There was nothing left to say. They were running, hiding, digging deeper into the mess that Ashford had created. It wasn't just about Ashford Technologies anymore. It wasn't just about Victoria. It was about everything. The government, the illegal deals, the blackmail, the criminal network that had been pulling the strings behind the scenes. They reached the roof, the night air colder than before. Serena's eyes scanned the surroundings, as if she expected someone to appear at any moment. This way, she said, leading him to a makeshift ladder on the side of the building. Where are we going? Marcus asked, still trying to keep up. Serena didn't answer. She just climbed the ladder with swift urgency, signaling for him to follow. Marcus could barely keep his thoughts together. They were heading toward answers. But every step felt like it brought him closer to something even darker. As he reached the top, the sound of screaming sirens reached his ears. The city was alive, but Marcus was aware that the danger was never more present than it was now. Serena reached for something in her jacket, pulling out a small, glowing device. She clicked a button, and a holographic map appeared before them. A location was marked. This is where we need to go, Marcus, Serena said, her voice steely. Everything we need is there. But we have to hurry, Marcus. The map flickered and shifted in the dim light, leading them toward a location that Marcus had never heard of. Where is this place? Marcus asked, his voice low with suspicion. Serena's fingers hovered over the map. Her eyes narrowed in concentration. It's an old government facility. It's been abandoned for years. No one knows about it, not even the CEO. Marcus's mind was racing. So why do we have to go there? What's so important about this place? Because. Serena's voice was steady. But there was a hint of urgency. It's where everything is stored. The files, the recordings, the evidence we need to expose Ashford's involvement in this whole mess. If we don't get there first, they will destroy it all. Marcus's heart pounded, but his mind kept reeling. The company had been hiding this much? For how long? Suddenly, Serena stopped in her tracks, her hand gripping his wrist tightly. They are following us. And Dad, Serena stopped in her tracks. Marcus's eyes widened, and he instinctively turned to face the street below. Black SUVs, their headlights cutting through the dark like predators, were heading straight for the rooftop. We have to move. Now. Serena yanked Marcus forward, her face pale but determined. As they raced toward the edge of the rooftop, a loud thud echoed behind them. The SUV had stopped directly beneath them. Time was running out. The men were closing in. Serena and Marcus reached the edge of the rooftop. The tension in the air was suffocating. Tyler's men were just below, and time was running out. Marcus could hear their voices, but he couldn't stop. They had to reach the facility. But how could they get past these men without being caught? Serena turned to Marcus, a look of calm resolve in her eyes. We make our move now. Without another word, she pulled out a small signal jammer from her bag and activated it. The communication signals from the SUV's men suddenly went dead. They will be blind for a few minutes. Serena whispered urgently. That's our window. Move. Marcus didn't need another signal. They jumped into action, leaping from the rooftop onto an adjacent building. Their footsteps barely made a sound as they quickly ran down the fire escape. But the men were relentless. They were getting closer. Serena pulled Marcus into a narrow alleyway just as a bullet grazed the wall beside him. We need to keep moving, Serena hissed, pulling him forward again. Just as they rounded another corner, a flash of light ahead stopped them in their tracks. The facility's entrance was right there. But were they too late? Marcus and Serena reached the gates of the abandoned facility, but there was no relief. The facility was surrounded by towering fences, armed security cameras, and a layer of thick fog rolling in from the city's edge. Everything about this place screamed danger. Marcus could feel the pressure mounting. They had to act fast. They hid behind a stack of abandoned crates, breathing heavily, trying to steady their nerves. The flashlights of the SUV drivers scanned the alleyways, illuminating every inch, every shadow. They were getting too close. We don't have much time. Serena's voice was tight with tension. Her eyes scanned the perimeter. Once they spot us, we will never make it inside. They will lock this place down. We need a way in, now. Marcus's voice was frantic. He felt the weight of everything pressing down on him. If they didn't find the evidence, it would all be for nothing. Serena reached into her jacket pocket, pulling out a small keycard. This is the only way we get in. Her eyes narrowed. I got this from a contact inside Ashford, but it will only work for a few minutes. Once they know we are here, the whole system will lock down. Marcus's mind raced. A keycard? How had Serena gotten something so crucial? Was she really playing both sides? But there was no time for questions. Serena slotted the card into a hidden panel on the gate, and with a mechanical hum, the gate creaked open just enough for them to slip through. They were inside, but the facility was like a labyrinth. Dark corridors, flickering lights, and doors marked "Restricted Access" were all around them. The sound of footsteps echoed from somewhere deep within the complex. The clock was ticking. The facility felt like a tomb. Each step they took reverberated through the eerie silence, each corner more foreboding than the last. Marcus could hear the distant hum of machinery, heavier now, but nothing prepared him for what they were about to uncover. Serena led the way, her every step calculated, sharp, determined. She was the expert here. As they navigated the dark hallways, Marcus's thoughts kept drifting back to the messages, the lies, the secret files. What was really going on at Ashford? Who was pulling the strings? As they reached a narrow hallway, Serena stopped, holding up her hand. Silence. Marcus followed her gaze. At the end of the hall, a security door loomed, its heavy lock glowing faintly red. This was it. This is the vault. Serena's voice was low but sure. This is where they have been hiding everything. Marcus swallowed, his throat dry. What do we need to do? Serena reached into her pocket again and pulled out a small device, almost like a portable computer. She connected it to the keypad next to the door, and the screen flickered to life. The machine beeped a few times as Serena typed in a few commands. The door's lock light turned from red to green. "We are in," Serena muttered, stepping forward. Marcus hesitated. How much would this change everything? But there was no turning back now. Inside the vault, the room was darker than the hallways. Stacks of files, Rows of hard drives and dusty shelves filled with old records were crammed into the space. At the far end of the room was a large terminal, blinking ominously in the corner. "This is where it all started," Serena whispered, her eyes scanning the piles of confidential documents. "This is where the files were hidden, the ones no one was ever supposed to see." Marcus stepped forward, his fingers brushing against a stack of papers labeled classified. His stomach twisted. These weren't just company secrets. This was the heart of the conspiracy. Serena began typing into the terminal, her fingers moving rapidly. "We need the documents from the 2015 files, the ones about the government contracts, the ones involving the blackmail." Marcus glanced over her shoulder, his mind spinning with the weight of it all. He had no idea what they would find, but he could feel the truth lurking, just beyond reach. Suddenly, the screen flashed. "Here we go." Serena's voice was steady, but Marcus could feel the tension mounting. He stepped closer as the screen revealed what they had been looking for: financial records, off-the-book transactions, names of high-profile officials, and bribes. Then, in the midst of the documents, Marcus saw a name that made his blood run cold. "Tyler Bigham," Marcus whispered. Serena's hand froze on the keyboard. "That's not all." She paused, scanning the list of names. "You are not going to believe this." The document opened further, revealing a list of people involved in the cover-up. Tyler's name was at the top, but below it, there were others, names of important figures in the company and the government. Marcus's eyes widened. "This goes all the way to the top." Serena nodded, her expression grim. "It's not just Ashford. They have been using Victoria to cover this up. It's a syndicate. They have been manipulating everything, controlling people's lives like pawns in a game." Marcus's stomach twisted. Everything he had uncovered so far had been a fraction of the truth. The stakes were higher than he had ever imagined. Suddenly, a loud bang echoed from behind them. The door to the vault slammed shut. They weren't alone anymore. Marcus's heart raced as he spun around. Footsteps, heavy, deliberate. They were here. Whoever they were, they had found them. The door to the vault slammed shut, locking them inside. The faint clink of chains echoed in the distance as Marcus's mind raced. They were trapped. Serena quickly moved toward the back of the room, her eyes scanning the shelves. "We need to move. Now." She grabbed a handful of files and shoved them into her bag, making sure to avoid the stacks of paper marked with red classified stamps. "Who's coming?" Marcus hissed, his breath ragged as he stepped closer to Serena. His eyes were wide, panicked, but he couldn't show fear now. They had to get out of here. Serena didn't answer immediately. She kept typing, $10 end, trying to bypass the security system that had locked them in. "Tyler's people. They are not just after the files. They are after us." Marcus's stomach dropped. "Why?" "Because we are a threat now. We know too much." Just as Marcus opened his mouth to ask another question, the loud click of footsteps from outside the vault door interrupted him. Serena cursed under her breath. "They are closing in. We've got minutes, seconds at most." Suddenly, the door flung open. Marcus braced himself. Two figures stepped into the vault, guns drawn, their eyes locked on Marcus and Serena. This was the end. The two men stood in the doorway, their guns pointed directly at Marcus and Serena. The cold, metal barrels gleamed under the harsh fluorescent lights. But the real threat wasn't just the weapons. They were the men who wielded them. "You don't know what you are getting into," the first man said, his voice smooth but cold. "This is bigger than you, bigger than everything you've uncovered." Serena stood tall, unfazed. "We're not backing down. We're taking this all the way." Marcus felt a surge of adrenaline. There was no going back now. "Then you will regret it." The second man's smile was sharp, predatory. "You have no idea what's coming." Before they could react, gunfire rang out. A familiar face appeared in the doorway. Tyler Bigham stepped into the room, holding a gun. But this wasn't a friendly encounter. It was a battle for control. Marcus and Serena barely had time to process the situation. The two men, guns raised and expressions cold, were closing in on them. Every breath felt heavier, the air thick with tension. Marcus's heart pounded, his mind racing for a way out. This wasn't just a corporate cover-up anymore. This was life and death.